Hey everybody, what is going on? I am Maximus Rex and this is Big Baby Reviews. Today's Saturday, that means it is Erik Larsen Day. Those of you who've been following the channel regularly, and more specifically my reviews of Erik Larsen's run on Spider-Man, were probably expecting to see Savage Dragon #1 from Image Comics, the miniseries version, obviously. What happened is that basically a few weeks ago, I was able to pick up this issue of The Amazing Spider-Man by Erik Larsen in a dollar bin. I got this when I was on a trip to Boston. So what you're looking at is way before anything I've reviewed up to this point. This is the only issue of Amazing Spider-Man by Larsen that I have. So I think it's kind of maybe interesting just to take a quick look at Larsen before his run on Spider-Man and before Savage Dragon, just to kind of compare and contrast his style once again. Before I do that though, I do want to mention that we're on the road to 250 subs. Thank you. Right now we're hovering at about 185 subs. So thanks. I want to thank each and every one of you for subscribing. It's really appreciated. I hope you enjoy the content and the videos I put out. I hope you enjoy interacting, asking questions, making comments. And obviously I try to answer anything I see in the comments, any questions towards me as quickly as I can. And if you have any answers to some of the questions I asked during the videos, please feel free to let me know. Reason I'm mentioning that though is that my viewership, that's 11% of you. The other 89% of people who are viewing these videos are people who aren't actually subscribed. So please, if you're so inclined and you want to help out the channel, hit that subscribe button below the video. It helps us grow, it helps us create more content, motivates us, and helps get us out there to other people, hopefully, who have the same interests as we do. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. And let's move on to this comic. So this is, again, Amazing Spider-Man issue 327, mid-December. So I'm kind of curious there, is that I think I mentioned, with the McFarlane review yesterday, that there's early and late. I don't think I've ever encountered mid. I just noticed that right now, to be honest. This comic was published in 1988. Let me check. It's really printed badly. 1989. Obviously, yeah, McFarlane was more 88 89 in Amazing Spider-Man, then Erik Larsen picked up after that. I don't know, this is either one of the first Erik Larsen issues or a fill-in somewhere between the McFarlane issues. It's very early on, anyways, on Amazing Spider-Man. From what I can tell from this cover, Acts of Vengeance, I remember, was basically a crossover where all the villains were kind of switched from the regular kind of opposition. So that's why we get, the typical X-Men villain Magneto here on the cover, going up against Spider-Man. And what else did I want to add to this? Yes, the inking. So this is Erik Larsen penciling and Al Gordon inking. I think Al Gordon does a pretty good job. He does tend to be, he's pretty authentic to the pencils, just tends to clean it up maybe a little bit more than Larsen does, as we know from having looked at his run on Spider-Man. His lines can get kind of rough, but I think it adds to the energy and the dynamics of his artwork. I think it works really well. Obviously, a lot of these artists that we're looking at, clearly I do prefer when they ink themselves, right? I do find the commonality amongst all these artists I'm reviewing all week is that, the point at which they start inking themselves and developing their complete kind of aesthetic and style is kind of what I consider their peak period, or my favorite period. So not quite there yet with Erik Larsen. He hits that stride, I think, in that last Spider-Man run that I reviewed just recently, and when he moves on to Savage Dragon, obviously he goes even crazier, which is awesome, and I can't wait to review those. But for today, a little blast from the past that we'll look at before going into what was the future in the early 90s and Erik Larsen at Image Comics. So that is the cover. Let's crack this guy open and have a look inside. Do want to mention, I think it says here at the top, the non-mutant cosmic superhero. So at this point, Spider-Man has absorbed the power cosmic, I think it's called. So one thing I will mention, early on, what I noticed on this run by Larsen is there's especially in the layouts and this kind of stuff here, is definitely very Steve Ditko. I think he's taken a lot of inspiration and enjoys those early Spider-Man by Ditko. He did it up to issue 32 or 33, I believe. He laid the groundwork down, obviously. And I feel like Larsen is pulling from some of that definitely throughout this issue. So credits real quick. David Michelini is the writer. Erik Larsen is credited as penciler. Al Gordon is inker. Rick Parker, letterer. And Bob Sharon is the colorist. So, like I said, not a crazy splash page here, but an interesting one. And kind of pulling some of the cosmic well, other dimensional kind of elements in the background of Ditko, the kind of stuff he was using on Doctor Strange and kind of applying it to Spider-Man. And I guess, as he's saying here, he's kind of, because of the power cosmic, right? He can kind of see atomic substructures and stuff, and that's what he's doing with his web here. So I definitely think that's a very Ditko-inspired image and background. Now we're getting that long vertical, right? Becomes very popular in and around this time with all these artists. See tons of it in these reviews. Larsen, always very good at the storytelling pages. I think a little stronger than McFarlane when it comes to making these kind of, character moments a little more interesting. McFarlane just, I don't know, uses a lot of close-ups and stuff and tricks, and I feel Larsen just has a better handle on moving things around and having the characters do different things in the panel. And even though it's upside down here, I feel like there's a lot of Ditko in that Spider-Man face. So just a comment overall on the art, you will see there's just a little less gritty detail, a little less of that 90s feel on it. Once again, the same kind of things that are happening with Dale Keane on the Hulk and Tom McFarlane early on, where they're being inked by someone else, kind of, I guess, moved into the somewhat of a Marvel House style, right? And eventually they kind of bust out of that, which is what's interesting to see through these reviews as we move ahead. Even though here we're kind of going backwards a little bit. I mean, Larsen is there. He's fully formed. You can see his type of, anatomy and muscle structure, his effects, for dynamism and stuff. He's using the broken border, right, which is a, 90s trope as well. And he's fully formed. It's just slightly cleaned up, right? I still feel like Larsen is not having so much of his art taken away by the inker here as, for example, maybe Tom McFarlane with Bob McLeod on top of him, or the same thing on Dale Keane right now on The Incredible Hulk, on those reviews on Dale Keane Day. Here we're getting most of the Larsen just kind of, cleaned up ever so slightly. Still recognize his poses and his anatomy, right? That great use of the vertical panels. Love all these. I probably said it before, but I need to integrate more of those into my own comics process because I do really enjoy them when they're well done. This is, completely a Ditko trope that he developed. Even this shot here, man, it's like he's taken from other Ditko stuff and bringing it into Spider-Man. This kind of resembles maybe some stuff he would do with Captain Atom to represent, the power of atoms, the power of the atomic, whatever you want to call that. And this half face, half Peter Parker face, half Spider-Man face is definitely Ditko kind of came up with that, and it's something that's been used ever since throughout the comics, right? But there's just something in the way that he's doing it where he's conscious of it, right? Where I feel maybe some of the artists in the 70s and 80s were just doing it because they'd seen it before, but not necessarily by Ditko, by other artists who had copied Ditko along the way in the 60s and 70s. Starting to really exaggerate that anatomy, pulling a McFarlane. But as I've mentioned before, I do find Erik Larsen just has a way better handle on anatomy, so it works better. Just such a great arc and curve here, right, to his body. And of course, Spider-Man is definitely the character that lends himself to this kind of stuff, right? You would think he's like a gymnast, very flexible, very strong. And of course, Larsen giving us some iconic spider poses as well. As I said, I just feel that, the Al Gordon inking cleans his stuff up a bit, makes it look a little more kind of maybe more mainstream, more squeaky clean. But definitely not horrible because all that, good Larsen solid anatomy and structures, underneath it, holding it strong. This use of lines here is very interesting, right? Where they're like, this whole is kind of trippy and psychedelic, right? This whole design he's got here. I wonder, man, if I'm not mistaken, if you want to do this kind of thing, you have a vanishing point, right? If you guys out there, those of you who draw and illustrate, right? You've obviously got the vanishing point, which is probably his head or somewhere around there. And all these lines merge there, right? Even though the cape is here and you can't see underneath, it would be up here, right? But it's so even, right? Evenly spaced. So I think what you have to do is kind of like, you know, on the original artwork, obviously be bigger, but let's say I'm Canadian, so it's going to be metric. Let's say the space between these lines is 4 millimeters, right? So each one you have to go and measure out 4 millimeters, 4 millimeters, 4 millimeters, 4 millimeters, all the way. And then line each of those little markers that you give yourself with the vanishing point, and then draw the line, right? And ink it in. So to get that smooth, even flow all the way through there. Even flow. Sorry, I couldn't resist. So that's not impossible. You have to know how to do it, right? It's pretty simple, but man, does that take time. And I love that effect. I've talked a lot about it. It just looks really cool. And it's got that slight psychedelic feel to it that I really enjoy. Funny to see Spider-Man here just kind of throwing like energy projections. It's an interesting concept, I guess, for a little while, and it didn't stick around for too long. Didn't overstay its welcome. Fun for a bit. And the fact that Erik Larsen was drawing it probably made it funner. Also, I will mention Larsen is definitely taking a cue from McFarlane for the webbing as well, right? But again, there's just, maybe he does it a little tighter, I guess is how I describe it. Larsen gets compared to McFarlane a lot. I think both brought a lot to Spider-Man in and around these years, right? And, you know, as much as people credit McFarlane with creating the visual of Venom, the character's design stuff, sure. Larsen is definitely the one who pushed it to the extreme that we know it now. Excuse me, with the large teeth and the big tongue and the saliva and stuff, right? It's none of that is in the early Venom stuff that you see by McFarlane. Amazing foreshortening here. That Erik Larsen deal where he kind of draws a contour line and we lose. It's just we get one big space. It's always colored light, so that the eye understands it's a light reflection. Very cool. A little cleaner that I like from Larsen again, but you know, you lose a bit of the energy to make it look a little cleaner and more classic, I feel, but just amazing foreshortening. So well done. Very hard to do properly. And Larsen is always excellent at that. He's, you know, it's already been excellent for a few years at this point in here. And even today, if you look at the Savage Dragon stuff he's putting out, they're still super dynamic. Foreshortened poses, like very Kirby-esque. Just awesome. I never liked when Spider-Man would do this, right? For example, like here, I guess because he's got the power cosmic at this point in the storyline, it kind of makes sense. But it just, when he would like create a baseball bat to hit something, or like what other things has he done? You know, like maybe at some point he's like made a hammer out of web or something because he needed a hammer. I don't like those things, because then now we're implying that also Spider-Man Peter Parker is like a master sculptor with his webs, right? And he can just make anything. So not really my thing. I like when he uses it for swinging around, that's cool. When he's used it before to like shoot a big wide web that people, you know, falling can be saved by, I can buy all that stuff. But yeah, when it gets to this point, I just find it kind of goofy, right? It's a little too talented there. This awesome shot here, like what can you say about that? Great. Using the thick McFarlane border here. We've got those dynamic manga lines, I'll call them, in the background. Love it. Just tons and tons of great Spider-Man shots here, right? This splash page here. Awesome, right? That's a great poster. Kind of something here just in this one I find is very McFarlane-y for some reason all of a sudden. And then we kind of revert to more of a Ditko vibe here. You know, I do still feel that Ditko vibe here and there. So at this point, Spider-Man stops using the web and just figured out that he can fly because he's got the power cosmic, right? I love these. I don't know what you call those, right? But I've not mastered it. I think Larsen does a really good job here. And I don't think it's something he uses very often. But I love this this expression of surprise, I guess, or astonishment is basically what it is. Still haven't mastered it. The Europeans use it a lot in their more kind of cartoony bande dessinée. I've always enjoyed that. Another very McFarlane kind of composition here. I feel like McFarlane maybe would have like just drawn a vertical panel. We'd have that. Larsen's gone a bit further and just, you know, instead of throwing in a panel here, he's cut it out and we get more of Magneto. I think this looks really cool. Really cool composition. And two kind of awesome Spider-Man mid shots with amazing foreshortening. Once again, all the Larsen staples, all the stuff he's really good at. So visually, like, this is, I got to say, within the last kind of weeks or so of reviews, this is one of the most dynamic issues out there. I got to say the water looks a bit like jizz here. Sorry. Still looks pretty cool though. Well done. Water coming, him coming out of the water spurts. Bad choice of word. And like, this to me is like maybe swiped from McFarlane a little bit. It's a very McFarlane pose. This kind of works out funny to me, the way the arm is bent here. Again, he's pushing it a lot. Maybe this is one that got just a little bit past him. And it still looks cool. And then this page, in a weird way, like, there's something McFarlane-y about this here. The fact that's lying down the face here. Just maybe in the composition is kind of McFarlane-y, I guess. And always fun to see Erik Larsen do the Hulk, right? And it ain't Avon calling. I wonder how many viewers today, I would say probably 30 and under, would understand even what this means. If you do, comment on it. Do you know what this joke is about? Can you explain it? I do, but do you? So, a visitor from Vegas. So when the Hulk obviously was gray back then, Mr. Fix-It in Vegas is what they called him, right? So there you have it. A little bit of a step back before we take a step forward into Savage Dragon issue 1 from the miniseries. That's what we're going to be doing next review on Erik Larsen Day. Today's Saturday, so hope you're enjoying your day and having a great weekend. Thank you so much, for watching, and keep tuning in for the videos. Leave comments and concerns and questions, and I'll try and answer you as best as I can. Again, have a great day, guys.
Like, subscribe, like, subscribe.
King Comics presents Big Baby, Volume 1, Issues 1 to 13, 204 pages of story and art. King Comics also presents Star Crasher one-shot, 32 pages, cosmic sci-fi surrealist adventure. You can find these fine comics at KingComics.CA, at MaximusRex13 on Instagram, or on Facebook, MaxRex or Big Baby.